Hello everyone, it's Preston with another video. This time we are going to be working on something I've been wanting to work on for a bit, and that's a portfolio piece to make some UI icon chests for some shows I like. This one is specifically from the childhood show that I grew up on, is Yu-Gi-Oh! And right now I am starting off with the richest child board game, card game player of all time, Seto. Now, with these little projects I had planned, I wanted to create something that I could put into my portfolio. So I'm going with thumbnails and trying to push things a little forward, and then making things a little easier for me to add details later. Now I'm going to be skipping a little bit here in a second, but that is mainly because I'm just going to go from the coloring to the rendering and seeing what I can do from Procreate to Photoshop. Now these designs I based off of different aspects of each character that you're going to be seeing. One of them being obviously Seto Kaiba, and the other one would be Yami or Yugimoto later on. Yugi was probably the harder one out of the two of these, because I feel that Seto Kaiba's aesthetic has always been his more prominent feature of everything. And I say that because in the show, Seto Kaiba always keeps to the same style, something to do with Blue Eyes White Dragon, or his own very aesthetic style that he wears everywhere. So I wanted to base his treasure chest for this imaginary game. You would open it up, you would go and get whatever items from it, and get stuff based off of Seto Kaiba's aesthetic, I guess. Or this is just an imaginary game icon for chest revealing and things like that. So that's kind of the general gist of this project, is trying to build up my portfolio for not just game development for concept art, but also aspects of the illustration that can be used in UI and other things like that. So I'm using my skills that I've learned from working freelance and working in different industries to push my portfolio a little further, because I haven't really been able to show much of the portfolio stuff that I want to show everyone, even though NDA contracts are there. Now with this, I always had someone to look at it and see what was going on with these pieces to double check. So you'll see a bit of changes here and there for when the final pieces arrive. But the general idea with these is to have some form of game icon for them, the players, to open up or use to click on when they need to open something, like specifically cards or something in game. And I think that's something really cool. Now I didn't go into much of how it would open. I just gave up the ideas for the artwork and nothing more than that. I do think that it would be cool to maybe eventually do a concept of how it would animate, how it would work out, then go into fully fledged rendering the image in art form, and then possibly putting out the amount of work into it to make it a 3D modeled animation, and see exactly how cool it would be just to build assets for these games and build up my portfolio for those aspects. And you see that I brought up some videos about how Seto Kaiba acted and some of the inspiration for this, and I wanted to make it as much techie as possible, because he just has all the money to just break all the rules and just have all the cool glowing things. And that's something that I felt was always cool about Seto Kaiba, is that he used his money to do things to improve society in a way, with specifically a card game. But we are now to Yami / Yugimoto's chest, and this one I wanted to base it off of a more specific Egyptian chest shape, so it has more of a trapezoidal shape to it, and that's where a lot of this aspects for this chest came from, was those more ancient Egyptian type treasure chests. And I try to make this as perspective as possible. You see my sketches up there. Sadly, I didn't record my thumbnail work for this one, but I do think that this was a well-rounded illustration rendering of this. I started out with grayscale just to make sure that I had everything in the correct shading and lighting, and trying to make sure that everything in this image was a little easier to see and view, so that you get the aspect of it being Yugimoto / Yami's treasure chest. You'll see here when I start getting into the color though, my color choices were very deliberate on where I put everything, including with those rust spots that you see me sketching on the sides there, because that is one thing about creating something, is trying to understand where it is all going. Now, this rendering process, I've shown you guys several times in the past, and how this rendering process for me works. It's fairly simple. There's a full video about how I do shading and all that in my channel on my tutorial playlist. If you want to check that out, I'll also link it in the description, or at least into this video. But if you enjoy this so far, it's pretty cool watching this over again and seeing exactly where I could have worked on a little bit more. There always are aspects of being an artist that you can always look at a little bit more. So pretty soon, I believe we're going into using gradient maps as my main source of coloring. This is actually a way to actually kickstart your artwork and try to push things a little faster than what you would do if you normally would actually make the art pieces. So the colors of the reason why I wanted to choose these specific colors and why I added the rust. One is I always felt like Yami and Yugi were always fighting for who was up front and center. So I put the Millennium Puzzle and the rust there as a nod that even though Yugi is, according to canon, no longer a part of the Yami-Yugi duo, it's still part of him at some level. There's still this little intricacy about that. So you'll see these little aspects of this chest, and it's supposed to give that story of how Yugi and Yami worked together for so long that now, no matter what, the Millennium Puzzle will be front and center for Yugi, and the rust from the ancient pharaoh Yami would affect Yugi for so long in the future. I mean, with this most recent movie that came out, there's going to be a lot of differing ideas about that, especially with the perspective. But speaking of perspective, we are now working into the perspective, and I want to test out the perspective tool that Photoshop has now to help with the perspective. And I got fairly close with it, but it still needed a lot of work to fix it up afterwards. So I had to render it out and distort some things just a little bit more. And here are the final pieces. And I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys all again next time or in my shorts. Please remember to hit that subscribe button, as well as check out this video here. Leave a comment of who your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh character was, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye!